Homemaking at Benfleet. Tired of the cares and soul-cramping conventionalities of town, Jim and Madge, partners in life's race, sought to find freedom, health and happiness away from the city's raw and soot-laden air. They had heard and read of many islands of the blessed, and some they visited, but stayed no longer than to praise. Then came the day when Jim returned home with a copy of the Southend Times. What happened to Jim and Madge is told in this film. They arrived at Benfleet, where Constable Rutter said the best Jim and Madge could do was to visit the local representative of the Southend Times. Police advice is usually good, and here the young couple are seen receiving useful hints from the Southend Times man, who knows Benfleet through and through. He gives them a plan of campaign. The first question to be settled is one of temporary headquarters. And what could be better than the famous Hoy Inn with its 12th century hall and lounge? At the Hoy they enjoy an excellent luncheon. After lunch they call in the offices of Bowling and Sparks, and Captain Bowling expatiates on the glories of Benfleet and its time-honoured associations. He advises them to visit the old Norman church before visiting houses. They leave him greatly impressed. As advised, they visit the church before visiting houses. They meet Mr. Wilson, who shows them around the remarkable bungalows on the Vicarage Hill estate, where, in one of the healthiest situations in Essex, 70 bungalows are being erected. Eventide finds a young couple completely under the sway of beautiful Benfleet, strolling across the meadowlands with Boyce Hill in the background. The next day, Jim and Madge called on Mr. Frost, at the instance of Mr. Wilson, to see the material used in the bungalows. This was followed by a visit to Mr. Limmer, the managing director of the Bayswater Bedding Company, who showed them one of his remarkable furniture catalogues. Naturally, Madge wanted to see the shops in Benfleet, and after a call at Mr. R.A. Tuffield's, they decided he should be their grocer. It was the fine display that appealed to her. The particularly noble display of home-killed meat at Mr. Hart's opposite the station convinced Madge that this was the shop for her money. She has sound judgment. The fruit and vegetables were fresh and succulent at Mr. Keats's shop in Benfleet Market, and the happy couple were pleased with all they saw. Mr. Keats is an expert buyer. They went next door to Mr. Keats's fish department, where Jim was much taken with a lively lobster, which speedily changed owners, and later helped to form a regal feast. Following a strenuous morning, the young couple decided on luncheon. They went to Mr. Charles Powell's OIC restaurant. Mr. Powell is a noted caterer at fetes. The next day, Madge is convinced that the open life is the best, and that she needed a really good pair of shoes for the country. So she called on Mr. Hackshaw. Jim, in the meantime, had found at the Benfleet Wine and Spirit stores a special brand of wine at a lower price than he would have to pay in London. A visit to Heath Dairies. The excellent milk leads the young couple to decide on the shop which should supply them with milk, cream, eggs and butter. Jim was much struck by the shirts displayed at the True Fit hosiery at the foot of Vicarage Hill, and he found the material right and the price right. Luncheon this day was taken at the famous Anchor Inn, the landlord of which, Mr. Teddy Land, is one of Benfleet's most popular residents, and a prominent buffalo. Madge is particularly fond of flowers, and the wonderfully variegated display of blossoms at Mr. Clark's nursery in the London Road led them to make his acquaintance. The question of the star for life now arose uppermost in the young housewife's mind, and she took a bridegroom to see the excellent bread baked by Mr. H. W. Smith. "Now that we're settling here," said Jim, "what about some visiting cards and headed notepaper?" So off they went to Victory Press, where Mr. Naish showed specimens of his art. The question of feeding the dog arose. Madge said, "And we're going to keep chickens." This led to a visit to W. H. Ling's store and its most remarkable range of poultry and dog foods. A glorious ride through the umbrageous leaf-embowered Essex countryside in one of Major Pierce's famous blue charabancs marked the close of a perfect day. So Jim and Madge made their decision that Benfleet was where they'd make their life together.